Hi, this is Mike Hendrickson from Solid 2015 in San Francisco. I'm here with Clarke Patterson from Cloudera. Clarke, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Great. So you're with Cloudera, and Cloudera is not a traditional IoT type company. What is the intersection with Cloudera and IoT?
Yeah, you sound like an attendee to our booth today, actually. It's like, what are you guys doing here? So we like to think that we're kind of the processing, storage, analytics component behind IoT. When you think about the event here and a lot of the companies that are building instrumented devices and cars and all the other very interesting things that are on the floor, it's quite fascinating. We look at that as an opportunity to help organizations transform their business. So the byproduct of that instrumentation largely is data. But as it proliferates, the volumes of information become greater, the type of information we're trying to analyze varies vastly. It creates some very interesting challenges in terms of how you can make sense of it, what you can do with it. And so Cloudera, as a distribution of Hadoop, provides that storage, processing, analytics layer behind the scenes that allows you to actually start to make meaning out of all that insight that's floating around your business.
So the volume, the variety, the
velocity is the third one if you want to get real technical.
And the verification would be another V to add to that. Like, you can verify the data is what it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important, but not necessarily something that we do ourselves per se. So we have a very vast partner ecosystem, and there's a lot of, if you categorize them as data integration type of tools that focus on data profiling, discovery, cleansing, and we work very closely with them hand in hand to provide that, hey, what is this information in here? What does it need to look like, that desired end state, and how can we make our products work together such that it can be quality, cleansed, and we can have confidence that we can use it for sound decision-making processes.
So are you seeing any patterns, being a data-oriented company, in the IoT space, that certain patterns are existing that customers need help doing something? I mean, other than just analytics on top of their data they're generating? Is there another pattern that's existing?
So I mean, I think there's a couple of, so analytics is definitely a big one. There's some interesting dynamics in the area of compliance. So as more data becomes available to us, organizations are changing data retention policies, as an example. And so rather than keeping around 2 years or 5 years of information, they're suddenly saying, hey, I want to keep 10 or 15 or 30. I've actually had companies say, I want to keep data forever. And you kind of think, like, who's going to be around to figure out whether they did it or not? But that's the proposition nonetheless. That changes your storage in the most simplest manner. It changes your storage requirements fundamentally. And so we will be used in that regard to help from just a nearline kind of storage alternative. Not only that we'll be able to scale out for the volumes of information that people want to keep for longer periods of time, but because we have built-in analytics capabilities, for us it does come back to analytics a lot of times, there's still some level of discovery that wants to go on, and we can facilitate that very, very readily.
So that customer that wants to keep 15 years or lifetime of data, how are they going to find that needle in all of that data? I mean, how are they going to make sense of why they saved it to begin with? What are they going to pull out of that?
That's, I mean, a very, very interesting question. We have seen, so there's a number of different kind of organizational constructs that come into just how you manage data that are relevant here. One in particular is in the area of data governance, where folks are saying, hey, just because this is a big data project, doesn't mean it should bypass all the sound principles of just managing data for our enterprise. And so they need to have those facilities in place to say, I need to trace it from its origin, how it's been used, how it's being modified, and all those types of things. So we build in capabilities to provide that type of thing. And it's for that exact reason, so that you can report over time and make sure that you're meeting all those different policies for why you're keeping it and what you're doing with it.
Excellent. So if we look at Cloudera today and your role with the IoT space, where do you think Cloudera will be with IoT next year at this time?
Yeah, so it's interesting. At the O'Reilly event in New York at last year, Mike Olson, one of our founders, our chief strategy officer, talked about how Hadoop will disappear in the not so foreseeable future. And it wasn't so much that, or it wasn't at all, that the technology is going to go away, but it was more that it becomes an embedded component of kind of big data or data-centric applications. And that could be in software itself, where we just become an embedded component of an enterprise application, but it also could be manifested in a device. It might be in my watch, or it could be in my car, or whatever, and we'll have that adaptability to kind of plug it in. So I think what we'll see as this, the curve of adoption and need for data driven by IoT just continues to go at this enormous pace. We're going to have the generation and the consumption and use of the data very, very closely married. So I think we'll see ourselves being adopted in much more close combination with where the information is actually being generated.
So is there any particular industry that you think is really ripe for the combination of data and IoT that we can really extract some huge change?
Well, I wouldn't say that there's any one. I mean, there's certainly some leading organizations that we're seeing. Manufacturing is clearly a big one, where you've got products coming off a line, and there's opportunities for optimizing how you can get them out there faster. You can monitor the use of products in real time and address quality issues as you're actually building things. It is very, very interesting. The healthcare sector is starting to do a lot of different things, where we're putting video cameras, sound sensors, as just yet another data point to marry that against the pulse of my finger as I'm sleeping in a hospital bed. And if we can correlate patterns and identify that, hey, the temperature went up and so did the pulse rate of this individual, maybe we need to kind of change the settings of that room. Transportation industry, very interesting.
Uber.
Uber, exactly. So all these just different types of areas. Anything that you could, smart cities, utilities, anything that really has that opportunity to leverage some sort of technical device that could become a data generating component is really where this is starting to take off.
So it's basically everything everywhere.
Pretty much.
All the time.
Pretty much. I mean, I think, data, I've been around the data space for a long time, and we've been talking about data-centric enterprises and all these fun things, but I feel like now, there's almost no excuse to be doing more things with information, and there's no excuse to just try and get your hands on everything you can. You've got software that'll help you do it. You've got all these different types of components by way of IoT that will allow you to get the information if you so choose. And so we're really kind of at that point now where the data-centric enterprise or organization or service or whatever the case may be is really something that can be had. So it's a very, very interesting time for sure.
Absolutely. Clarke, we look forward to seeing where you and your colleagues at Cloudera take this and help this industry grow.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks.